Hi, everyone. This is our podcast. Today, we're joined with Marie Chloe Duval, and we're here with our co-host Molly Champlin. Um, Welcome to the podcast.
Hi,
Hi, welcome.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Of course. All right. Marie Chloe Duval, originally from
Kamouraska. So sorry, it's a hard one.
Kamouraska, Quebec, Canada, has a diverse and adventurous path in her artistic career. After initially pursuing an academic career in criminology, Duval discovered her passion for art while finishing her graduate studies. Her thesis writing served as the catalyst for expressing herself and illustrating her vision of humanity and society through her work. Duval honed her visual identity and explored photography before fully committing to painting in 2016. She made a strong impression in her first symposium by winning 5 prizes and since then has gained recognition with solo and group exhibitions around the world. Her curiosity and desire for knowledge has also led her to participate in multiple artistic residencies in Canada and Europe. She is deeply engaged in the artistic community, serving as vice president of art center boards, participating in residential projects for artists, and writing for art blogs. Currently based in New York City, Duval draws inspiration from the endless human actions that surround her. She holds a criminology bachelor and master, as well as a fine arts degree from Concordia University, and she is now completing her master degree in fine arts in the New York Studio School. Welcome, Marie Chloe Duval.
Hello. Hi.
All right. Thank you so much for doing this,
Oh my God,
Marie.
thank you.
Cool. Wait, so yeah, so you're in grad school, you were saying you're
Yep.
at your school MFA.
Yeah,
Where is that?
it's in New York. It's New York Studio School.
Oh, cool.
Um, it's right by NYU in
Mm-hmm.
Greenwich Village. So it's
Yeah.
a great spot. Although I mostly spend my time in the studio, but it's a good area to be creating.
Yeah.
Um, there's a good artistic vibe. It used to be the Whitney, the school, so it's pretty old school,
Yeah.
small, lots of history.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
feel the vibe in the school.
That's the one that's famous for the life drawing marathons, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I was just finishing when we were supposed to have the meeting. I was right into the marathon, and I took sculpture this year, which was amazing. But the school's very known to be working with the models
Cool.
from
Like
life. Yeah.
from the model, like live sculpture or more um
This marathon we had live model for 2 or 3 days,
mhm.
but I got kind of obsessed with this whole series of small faces sculptures. So I tried the model, but I was just like too in my
Yeah.
mind of like creating this
Yeah.
this obsession of mine. So I'm not the best to work with the model. I tend to just do my own thing.
You
I'm
follow your
trying.
instinct.
Yeah, I'm really
Yeah,
trying to
it's
to
really
do it
interesting.
because it's
How
good.
does how does the figure work affect your abstract work? Does it tie in together in some way at all?
I think everything that you're kind of like seeing all the time and being exposed to will eventually affect your practice. And although I'm not really doing the model like in my paintings, I'm still surrounded by like this like human feeling, and we're really working on the colors. So that has been translating a lot into my work. And this kind of like it was very challenging for me to find how to be interested and inspired by the model and by this given scene. And I think that got me into the working with the crowds and the new series that I've been working on. So really translating this interest into human, but multiplicating um, those visuals that I was seeing. So I think it still affects a lot, although it's not really like me painting the model. Also, it gives me the when I do it and I learn how to do it, it does give me the feeling that, oh, if I want to do it, I can do it. It's not me painting figurative work because I can't. It's out of a choice. And I think that in itself is pretty important in my practice.
How much specificity do you need with the figure? Like knowing who the person is, or what, I guess, yeah. Because I think that's the issue I find with the model is that I don't have control a lot of the times of who
Yeah.
these kind of models are, unless you get into a real relationship with the
Yeah,
people that you paint.
it's such a good question because I had this discussion with a colleague of mine because I was really struggling to get engaged with the model.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a different space last semester and it was so far away from me that I had a lot of like I would see everyone painting. I would see all like the room and I was like not very interested in the room. This semester I feel I'm a bit more engaged because it's much closer to me. And I realized that I'm very engaged with parts. I don't like this whole information. I like parts of the information, keeping the mystery or playing with the composition. As far as knowing, I kind of like the not knowing the model and just being like, oh my God, like this, like it's so fascinating that I'm like in a room with that person that's giving time and vulnerability while I'm being there painting
Mm-hmm.
this complete stranger. And even in my work, I'm very fascinated by strangers. Like on the street, that's something that I really love. It's like I'm sitting next to some people at a restaurant. I'm like, oh, I don't know them, but I could know them.
Yeah.
It would be like a question of like maybe we meet this friend in common. So this whole like stranger friend relationship and the movement in between, I like it. And even in criminology, when I was working in the field, not doing research, I never read the folder of who I was working with. I wanted to meet the person and I wanted to get to know the person without having any kind of like noise of like, like, oh, you done that, you're in jail for that, like kind of like creating this idea. I wanted to make my own idea. So I guess it's a bit of the same with the model. I want to learn a little bit
Yeah.
and piece it out myself slowly or not at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's interesting. That the draw you have towards strangers as a potential relationship.
Yeah.
And so do you find yourself, um, when you interact with other people, kind of sliding into um, new friendships often? Are you like more kind of an extrovert, or you'll find someone who's a stranger who's kind of interesting, and then you'll just kind of
Yeah.
actually you'll say hi to them in the
Yeah.
restaurant, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to kind of have those like quick connections and maybe I'll never see that person again and it's totally fine to me. It's not like I'm collecting friendships. But yeah, my friends are not surprised if I'm like, oh yeah, that's a friend I met at the park, and they'd be like, oh, okay. Like, and they show up at a barbecue. But I just like this, like, oh, for this moment, we're sharing something. And maybe it's a minute, maybe it's an hour, and maybe we'll meet again, maybe we won't. But I really love those kind of random encounters.
Is it more difficult? Have you done portraits of your close friends and people that are really in your inner circle, and is that any more or less difficult for you?
Actually, I've never done it and I've never even thought about it.
Wow.
But also, like, the portrait is not in most of my work, there's none of the facial feature, or if
Yeah.
there is, it's no one. It's just something I'll create that resemble a face.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I've never done any portrait of my friends. I guess I don't know. It's just for me, it's more about like a person
Hmm.
than a specific
Yeah.
person. I
Yeah.
don't know if it makes sense. It's like a human being in his whole, whoever it is. And it can be like changing.
Yeah. I'm always curious about that. There was a recent Alice Neal retrospective around here, and looking at her work, you could tell how specific it was. Like you looked at those people and you were like, kind of sitting with a psychology while you're looking at that painting.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who's really like on the level of flesh or on the level of the form
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah. And it's so true that like people will paint the portrait or the person, like the figure,
Yeah.
but the interest is sometimes the flesh. Like, who is it's like Jenny, forgot her last name.
Jenny Saville?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Her
she's great.
work of the flesh is just
Oh
the
yeah.
way she blows up the model. It's
Yeah.
like she
Oh, I
uses the
can.
figure,
Yeah.
I love her work so much.
Cool, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the moves with material and like abstraction and color and yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really captivating work that I can observe for a very long time. Yeah.
Who else are you inspired by?
I I've I think the first painting that I've been really moved by was a piece by Wanda Coop, which is in the permanent collection at the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Montreal. And it was this, it's called La Terre de nos ancêtres, which is like, I don't know the exact translation in English, but it's this blurry, big scale landscape. Every color is kind of like, I don't want to say muddy, but it's on the like very kind of like tamed down. It's not chromatic. And then you have those drips of like cadmium orange falling. And it was just, I don't know, I stared at it for so long and I was so in awe. And I recently fell in love with Katie Kollwitz, German expressionist. And
Mm,
I don't know, I saw her work and I was I was like, oh my God, where have you been? It felt very good. Yeah. So
cool.
I've been looking into her a lot.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So definitely some expressionism in your process.
Yeah. It's like when I get in the flow and it's like I feel the paint moving. I'm just
Yeah.
God, and then I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, and then like I walk, like I step back. I'm like, oh, okay, and then I just kind of
Yeah.
follow this where it leads me.
Cool.
Yeah, it sounds like you have like an intuitive kind of way of working. What's like your ideal working environment?
Um, it varies. I'm quite flexible, but I would say like to be efficient, I not efficient, but to work without like questioning everything. It's like, okay, I want to focus on that and I want to get this. I always have a plan for what I'm gonna focus on the next day. Maybe it won't get achieved, but I know when I'm getting in the morning, like what I'm gonna start with. Um, and I most of the time listen to music, but it's gonna go into cycle. It's like podcast, silence, music. Also, I like to have space and I like to be able to move from different paintings because working from a tiny painting into a big one, it's not going to be the same movement. So they kind of inform each other. Um, but I'm not really good at, just like going and work for a day in plein air because I'm like, it feels like it's all disorganized. And then I'm looking for my things. And like, I really like to work in the studio. And then I go there, my things are there, I paint, and then, yeah.
Um, you also have some more, I was kind of interested in your installation type work, and your you seem to move kind of fluidly between big, small, canvas, sculpture. How do you move between, how do you choose one mode or another?
Yeah, I'm so happy about the installation discussion because I think for a long time I feared, I was told, oh, because I do abstract and figurative, and it was almost like this, like if you want to make it into the art, do one thing and stick to it.
Mm.
Like that's kind of weird because I feel that as an artist, your your job
Mm-hmm.
is to create, and you should not have that boundary. But it's very instinctual, and sometimes it's just going to be a matter of like, I find this amazing material
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to do something with it. I have a big studio in Montreal, and I have a lot of materials that I will like find in the trash, or someone's gonna, like, another artist from the studio is gonna leave it, and then I'm like, oh my god, I need to do something with that, and that thing is gonna bring me to another thing. um, and having a lot of space now here, it's more on the painting side, but when you have so much space, you can leave things around, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll be like, oh, I can use that.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're just there sitting, they're kind of like getting into your subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's very like following a thread. It's like, oh, you do this and then you bring that, and then yeah, the installation work is something I really like to do
Mm-hmm.
because I feel it completes the idea that I want to share with the public. um yeah, but
What
I'm
is,
yeah,
yeah, what is that idea that you want to share?
I just want to like confront in a way of like, what you see, is it really what there is, and like what you think and your beliefs and the way you act and the way you make decisions and dreams and see life, is it really you, or it's something that has been constructed, and you think like this need of questioning reality and things and beliefs is very strong to me, and I think art is amazing to do so because I mean, no one was reading my articles. It was like people in the academic world and criminology. Okay, cool. But we all know about those issues and those research. As in the art world, if it's an installation, if it's a painting, someone will walk by and will be challenged by it. They didn't ask for it. Most of the, like, okay, if it's in a gallery, yes, they went there, but it kind of like it's put there to the world to see, and it's for everyone, and I like that a lot. And the installation work, I feel that the people can experiment that feeling to another level.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think visual art has that, can have an impact on you just, you know, as you visually digest it,
Yeah,
sooner than reading something where you really have to kind of like hold it in your head and kind of unpack it, and it occurs over the duration of reading. Um,
yeah,
versus visual art, it can just like, yeah, it can hit you and then you can sit with it and continue to kind of go deeper and deeper
yeah.
in a way
And the
that's very
thing,
beautiful.
it doesn't have to hit you in the positive way, and
Yeah, no.
that's the beautiful thing about art. It's like, I think the art that I talk the most,
Yeah,
it's not because I loved it like visually, it's not because I was like, oh wow, what a
yeah,
talented artist. It was like something that annoyed me, or that I thought was like to this or that, or my personal liking. But those are the pieces that stay with me so much, and it's like, oh
yeah.
okay,
The ones that challenge you.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, you had studied and were doing a master's in criminology before you did the switch to art.
Yeah,
And that you're saying does influence your practice still, like
yeah,
everything that you studied.
yeah,
What kind of topics or questions were you researching?
yeah. I was so this one year before my PhD became very long, 8 years now. But I was very, very interested more into the social aspect of criminology because it's a very interesting mix of psychology, law, and sociology. And I was very interested in sociology. And my work was on public opinion, the way media will portray social cases, and how this will affect the lawmaking
Yeah.
and propaganda. So, very interested in education, um, social construct, free will, also like the idea of like prison and how we deal with society. And I also worked a lot on white collar crimes, and it was more like on environmental crimes and how you can impute penal responsibility to companies.
Oh, cool.
So it was always about how we navigate the world in society and how like we kind of like yeah make decisions and affect behaviors more than psychology of a one person.
Yeah, totally. And so I'm sure you must be following what's going on still with criminal justice reform and prison reform. Is that kind of do you have a take on that, or was that stuff that was coming up in your program at all?
It's been a long time and I've kind of disconnected in a way like um I'm I'm not aware enough and I haven't been reading, I haven't been keeping track to have like a inform current opinion.
Yeah.
I believe there's systems that are working better than others and I've never it's it I believe that you need to give people a chance. And I'm not saying that criminal acts are okay by any means, but I also don't believe that we should. I don't know how to say that, but oh, did you see that? There's a thumbs
Yeah.
up went into somewhere. But that you should like stigmatize someone for an action. And I think it's very dangerous in any positive or negative way to stigmatize and put a label on someone for an action because an action and that's the where the free will enters. My free will is different than your free will, and hence your set of action that you can take and choices. So it's very tricky. I don't believe in prison in a certain way or the way it is like so tight, airtight, at least
Yeah.
in this system. I don't know the American system as much as I know the Canadian system as
Sure.
well. But for someone to be a citizen, you need
Yeah.
to have social support. You need to have links. You need to have positive things that are happening. If you cut that out, it's really hard to make good moves. So I'm very much into the positive approach of helping and preventing more than reacting into the negative. I don't know if it's a bit confused, but yeah.
Yeah.
that that's yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could be more well read, but I think in the US one of the issues with prison is prison labor being kind of like um modern slavery in a way. Um
I just saw actually like yesterday, I think it was like
yeah.
22% of people in jail in the world are in the United
Yeah.
States. That's a whole a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's not so capital kind of enjoys that system.
Yeah. And then it's and then the question of a business
Yeah.
comes into that because if it's a business, it doesn't have the same aim as if it's a governmental institution there to help.
Hmm.
Is the
Right.
government doing a good job? That's another topic, but it's just those two things are very, very different way of approaching a situation, which I think
Hmm.
is at the root of some big questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like you could get into a lot of really interesting questions
Yeah.
with the study of.
Oh yeah. It's endless. I'm never gonna have enough time in my life to paint
Yeah.
everything I want to paint. That's the thing.
Yeah. Painting is a very, I think, satisfying way of working through ideas, but it's very frustrating as well and can be very inefficient
Oh yeah.
as well.
It's crazy. It's so
Yeah.
long. And I love it. It brings me so much joy and energy. Like hands down, it's the favorite thing I do. It's something I cannot live without, but it's also so painful.
Yeah.
And I didn't know like people, I heard someone saying, oh, painting, it has to be painful. I was like, what?
That's how
And
you spell it.
it is, oh yeah, that's true. It's painful. Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
How has your practice changed over time?
So much. It's crazy. When I started, I was only painting in black and white, and I was like, I can't do colors because I feel like I'm seeing everything with black and white. And then if I'm opening the door of colors, it's like I'm never gonna have enough time. And I've always been in between series of figurative, abstract, and more like landscape. And I felt that this like very limited palette was allowing me to navigate between these. And then I started, and that was acrylic. And then I started working in oils. And then I started making my own blacks. And then that black became warmer and cooler. And then that kind of like became like, oh, it's actually red and blue. And the colors started happening. And um, I, a lot more control, a lot more definition. Um, I'm not I'm not hiding behind like bold stuff all the time as I would have been younger. But also when I look at younger paintings, I'm like, oh, it was like I really didn't care, and it was like saying everything I had to say. So, I don't have all the answers. Is it better? Is it worse? I don't know, but it's definitely not the same. Yeah.
How, yeah, so you're getting into color more. Is that still, what are your current interests? Or is there more you feel like you want to explore with color?
Yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
interested in right now, I guess?
I'm like going full on with a very complete palette. Very interested in not, oh, that's not toned down, muted colors.
Hmm.
So mostly like muted, and I'll work like some more chromatic colors, but very into the crowds right now.
Hmm.
It's like I do one painting and then it opens this like, oh, but what if I do this and then so it's just endless. So navigating the yeah, the crowds and making, and when I say crowds, it could be like a one very um abstracted portrait, kind of like the figure but the form, um and playing on the color. So really playing into that field, from very tiny paintings to big ones, and recently the sculpture also. So it's kind of a new motif that I feel like I can explore forever. I've done a lot of solo person,
Hmm.
so now I'm like packing people into it,
Yeah.
and not trying, or I'm trying to not try to make sense of it right now, as it's fairly new. So I'm just really painting and creating and getting things out, and I'll make sense of it later, or not. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting visual. I guess I identify with that. The interest in crowds, especially in today's um, just speed of life and the
Yeah.
way that, I don't know, it resonates with me on multiple levels, like the way that people kind of become standardized through social media, and they become easily like containable and shrunk down and
Yeah.
scalable, which can be a bad thing. But also, as we learn more about the universe, our sense of place here gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and like we
Oh,
can sort of,
totally.
a much bigger picture.
Yeah. I
So,
realized like with the sculpture, I realized was like, why am I so obsessed with making those like little
any,
like agglomeration of people? And I was like, oh, maybe it's because I really don't understand what's the sense of life, like,
yeah,
or the purpose. And I'm saying that in a very positive way, but like honestly, there's no end goal to it, like we're just there. So
hmm
I guess I'm trying to create those like little people in their little world, because this whole thing doesn't make much sense when you think about it. We put so much pressure on like being, and I'm the first one to put pressure on, like I want to have a good career, I want my work to be good, I want, and sometimes I'm like, but what's the point? Like maybe I should just be like sipping cafe and like friends, or I don't know, it's like, so yeah.
I think I'm thinking there are some people who would argue though that the goal of art is to zoom in as close as possible and to find those narratives and to assert the meaning and share that with others so they don't get lost in,
That I
in the
agree. That's the
yeah,
that's the meaning of life that I'm not sure about.
yeah. Totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. What so within the crowds, are there any sort of like, microcosms or crowd mechanics that you're particularly, you know, curious about?
Yeah. Um, I love when I remember I used to work some night shift
Yeah.
when I was working at a halfway house, and I would finish at 8, take the train home, and then I would be like, and everybody was going to work. So I was this kind of like silent observer of this reality that I
Yeah.
was not part of it, like this morning rush. And I would see like everyone doing the same thing. I was like so fascinated by it. And yet when I was at 8 in the morning going to work, I was totally part of it. I was like on my phone, drinking my coffee, walking fast, going to work, doing this, doing that. So this whole like kind of like orchestrated choreography, I think is beautiful when people are going in, going out somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, and I like when I'm painting to kind of like distort, whatever, play on that um, idea of like, are they coming? Are they going? Who's further? Who's closest? Like I'm giving you hints of like what's happening, but there's weird elements of like, oh, that person's like actually going back, but that makes no sense. Like,
Yeah.
so kind of like playing on that. And it's my like little like I'm really having
Yeah.
fun with that. So
Yeah. So the crowd's in movement and it
yeah,
moves through these systems.
yeah. It's like the
Uh,
sea. You never bath in the same sea.
yeah.
You'll never see the same crowd again. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. Truly.
Yeah.
Um,
How is your work moving towards now? Like, do you feel like you're going to be continuing with the crowd work, or are you currently working on more installation work, or where do you see your work moving towards, I guess?
So it's a good question. I think the crowds, just because it's quite new, it's something I started in the fall, so it's only been a couple of months, and there's so much that I want to investigate in that, and the sculptural work, and I think finding a language between those things, and like the idea of like creating an installation, but not necessarily like this like specific installation, but creating a narrative in a show per se. I've always liked creating this kind of like storytelling in a show, not making like 20 paintings out of the same declination, too precise, but like one painting bringing you to the next, and maybe that interfere with some installation. Like I see like little sculpture peeking through the ceiling, peeking through the walls, and just kind of like guiding you through this like space. And I've done a lot of shows in cultural center in Quebec, and a lot of them were in patrimonial house. So you don't have this big white cube, it's like rooms. And I love that because they force you to kind of like walk through a space and through a story. So I really like this. So I think I want to push that in the future.
Right, like creating a narrative and
Yeah,
yeah, that's very interesting.
maybe like crowds walking through crowds,
Yeah.
Inception kind of thing. I don't know.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
I think it's fairly basic, but it makes so much sense in so many things in life, not only like painting wise. But when I was debating between my PhD and then art, um, my friend asked me about what kind of gives me energy. And I think it's a very important distinction because I'm a very social person, but I also get a lot of my energy from being alone. And as I liked and love writing articles, it took a lot of me. And when I'm painting, it gives me a lot. Like I end up after a day, I'm like, oh. So knowing where you recharge and where you spend your energy, and knowing that and balancing it, I think it's very important. And yeah, that was a really good advice, and that made me realize like, okay, just do art. So that was pretty good advice, I guess.
Cool. Do you have a thesis show coming up soon with your
It will be in May 2025. I'm still starting but the MFA thesis is usually from May 5th to May 16th. But that's going to be the following year for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else exciting in your future that we should look out for?
There's so much exciting things. So right now I have a show up till I think April in Montreal, which is a very exciting show because it's at the biodome biosphere, which is like it's like there's like the biodome and like all those like big places for science in Montreal. And biosphere used to be this location for the Expo 67, and it's an iconic place in Montreal, but it's also the research results that are being translated into art with 11 artists from Montreal. Some are in performing art, some are in poetry, some are more like sculpture. And 11 artists have been invited to read research on a year-long research about the zero waste movement that has been conducted in Canada with the Polytechnique in Montreal. So it's aligning the city of Montreal, the entire Canadian community with the organization and then the Polytechnique. And it's a lot of French words. I'm sorry, but it's really hard. But it's a really amazing show because it's really bringing people into understanding research. And I mean, this is what I love to do. So I'm very proud of this show. So that's really good. And I'm looking forward to have more of this. And yeah, we'll see. But definitely this is something I look forward for more. We'll see few shows, few group shows. Very cool group show coming up in September in New York. And yeah, very open to what's next.
Cool. Yeah, sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe a residency in the summer and just kind of like more time to write as well. Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still write? What kind of writing?
I do a lot of poetry.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. So it's a big part of my work, including it more and more.
Yeah.
So-
Maybe you can share some with us and we
oh,
can
I'd
read
love to. I have few in English. Somehow I mostly
them.
write in French, but I
Cool.
have few poems in English as well.
Cool. Yeah, definitely share
Oh
some.
yeah. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. It was like a lot of really, really interesting questions you've asked me that made me think a lot and some stuff that I don't usually talk that much about. So it's really cool to be able to share that with you. And
Yeah.
also I'm absolutely obsessed with the painting behind you. It's just so good.
Thank you.
I'm like, oh my God, what's going on behind? Like, I love that so much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much for sharing all of that with us. It's been
Yeah,
really
Thank
inspiring.
you.
it was a pleasure.
Thank
Enjoyed.
you to both of you. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your
Thank
day.
you.
You too. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye bye.